Welcome to the Inspired Evolution. And it is, guys, it's a treat. It's a treat today. We have with us Asher Tan. Asher, how are you?
Good, thank you.
It's for those tuning into Asher for the first time, we're going to go into some places which are novel for me as well. But just so you know, Asher is the co-founder and the CEO of a thing called CoinJar.
I am.
I'd love to find out more about what CoinJar is, but I think just to sort of understand what we're doing here, because even I don't even understand what I'm doing in this conversation today, which I think is kind of useful for those that are tuning in. If you don't know what blockchain is, if you don't know what Bitcoin is, I think this episode may serve you pretty well, because I'm coming from a novice's perspective, not having invested in cryptocurrency in any way, but I do have a background in engineering. For me, I didn't invest because it is speculative. But we can talk all about that sort of stuff. And I'd love to sort of start with perhaps your view on the world in terms of what you see as Bitcoin being.
Well, that's a loaded question. And I think in some ways it's like asking someone, what does money mean to you? And it means a lot of different things to different people.
No, okay, sorry.
But yeah, in essence, it's asking, what does money mean to you?
Sure.
I guess Bitcoin is like money. It's got some special qualities that make it a good type of money.
Uh-huh.
So it's not controlled by any one government or one organization.
Uh-huh.
And that's why a lot of people are drawn to it. But it's essentially the same thing. It's a new way of thinking about money. And again, different people have different opinions of money and uses of money. So it's quite a broad question. But this specific type of money, decentralized money, digital money, is definitely something that caught my eye 7 years ago.
I love that. And so just shooting into that, how you talk about decentralized money, there's nobody regulating it. There's nobody looking after someone's money.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a sliding scale about how much control one entity has and, how much control you think.
Mm-hmm.
So Bitcoin's definitely on the scale of no one really has true control over it. Some people might point that, well, these people have bigger say in it, either by investing a lot of money or being active participant in the industry. But the fact is, there is no one person to complain to, one person to make changes to. And that's a new idea. Usually there's somebody to complain to, centralized companies, corporations. If I don't like your podcast, I know who to go to. If you don't like my company, you know where to file a complaint. Yeah. Or even if you might go to other parts of government if you're unhappy with certain things. Bitcoin is quite decentralized to a point where there's no one really to complain to if things go wrong.
Okay, so where do you think that was birthed out of? Obviously, there's the white paper that gave birth to blockchain and Bitcoin from there. But I think what I'm trying to allude to in that question is more the undercurrents of why was there a need to establish a new currency, like a new form of currency? Why digital currency? Where did that emerge from?
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint exactly the feelings or the motives of people behind the initial writings or technology, because we just don't know who they are, him or her or they. But very much the initial groundswell of movement was around unhappiness of the financial system, unhappiness of current ways money works, and seeking better ways to do money. So I think there's a quote on the internet that says, money is the bait, philosophy is the trap.
Money is the bait, philosophy is the trap.
Yeah, and I think that's quite similar with Bitcoin, right? You hear about this cool type of money, which, it's sort of speculative. It may go up. It's kind of sexy. And then you learn about it and you think, why am I using, why do I have regular money? What type of money I use? And then you go down a rabbit hole of thinking, hey, maybe there are some ways which this could be made better. Maybe there are some ways where the current monetary system doesn't meet all our expectations of what it should be in this day and age. So, before there wasn't really any alternative. And right now there is an alternative and more people are taking part in it.
Yeah, so I think it brings a really interesting question to light in terms of what is value and how do we value. And I think you're kind of alluding to that because there's almost like when we stop to just take a moment to pause, and this was kind of, I almost had a breakdown about 2 years ago, like not a serious one. But when I first started thinking about, okay, where does money come from? And I started realizing, oh, actually, it's not my government that controls money. It's private institutions that control and regulate these banking institutions that control the flow and flood of money in markets, and they control in the markets. And it made me realize that, but there are some people out there that, and sorry to get so morbid so early on in the episode, but there are people that are, in financial debt that actually end up taking their lives because of things like financial debt. Right? It's like a big thing. Like our financial concerns actually have serious impacts on us as human beings, right? It decides where you can live, where you can send you, like what school you can send your kids to, what sort of people they grow up to be, right? So there's a lot in there in terms of how money is controlled and circulated. But then the conversation around value is kind of where I landed on the back end of having processed all these under awarenesses around, okay, where does our money come from? Where does it go? But at the end of it, it's, okay, what does it do for me? And it helps me express my value exchange. So, for example, like I may go out and invest in a guitar that's, a couple of $1,000, means a lot to me. I love music, I love instruments. But someone else will look at that and go, that's a bit exorbitant, But it comes back to the money is helping me make a value exchange with what I enjoy, spending my value, my energy, my time, because I'm basically buying things with my time, right? Because my time is what brings me my money at present. And so looking in at that, the interesting thing is money was once backed by gold. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But it hasn't been for a while.
Yeah, and I mean it's efficiency of the monetary system. It's efficiency of finance, and I guess a lot of smart people have given it a lot of thought. But from your perspective and my perspective and the common man's perspective, sometimes that doesn't line up with your own personal values or what they're trying to do with money. So yeah, I think it's a good conversation to have, good conversation to think about. Yeah, and I guess besides the implications of value, which you spoke about, I think there are some larger societal implications.
Mm-hmm.
If you use the currency of a country, you sort of have some sort of identity with that currency. Usually it's because of the government where you live. Nowadays, people tend to live all over the world. They spend more time on the internet than, interacting with people outside or people in their own country. So the question is, well, if you have a value system based on a type of money, do you want to identify with a new value system?
And what are the incentives?
So I mean, part of it is everyone wants a tribe. You may be a part of a guitar playing tribe, a podcasting tribe, and now there's a group of people who want to be identified with a tribe of people who seem to be able to think independently and have shown to think about money in a certain way that I guess draws them to this new asset class.
And so we kind of wrapped our heads around what Bitcoin is. It's the ability to basically exchange money digitally. It's like the internet for money. Is that a safe sort of way of putting it?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of parallels to what Bitcoin is, and sometimes people try and draw, I guess, metaphors and examples which don't completely fit. Some people said electronic gold is quite a good one. So if you think about gold, it's quite scarce. 1 gram of gold to me is the same as 1 gram of gold to you. And it can, as long as it's electronic, so it moves like email. But there are lots of quirks and interesting features that I guess make Bitcoin unique in its own way. It is both sort of like cash and gold at the same time, and lots of other things at the same.
I think what you're referring to there is both the fluidity, the potential of it being fluid, but also the potential of it being quite a good way of storing currency. And there's currently two camps, right? Like people are looking at it as, some people see it as being quite fluid, as its potential use for the future, and other people looking at it as being quite like a silo sort of thing.
Yeah, it's quite ideological, and even I spoke about having identity and in money. And I guess even in the cryptocurrency world, there are different camps where people have different identities. And
there's a civil faction inside.
Yeah. So I guess, everything comes down to your opinion of the world and, what has value. And again, even in this small, quite niche industry, there are different views, and it's quite refreshing sometimes to know that, well, we all sort of believe the same thing, but sometimes the interpretation of that takes a skew.
Yeah, one of the things that I found really really poignant when I was reading up, doing some of the research and some of the background of the stuff that you've done is it's very difficult to, and I'm paraphrasing you, so pardon me if I get it all sorts of butchered because I'm pretty good at butchering things, is you mentioned that it's very difficult to draw parallels or come up with metaphors for what the future is using metaphors from the past.
Yeah, I mean, we try to explain things as well as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to have a very short memory of how we thought things were going to turn out. So we've been doing this for about 7 years now. And we've kind of seen even traditionally tech-savvy investors or clued-up people have quite dissenting opinions of Bitcoin and digital currency. And, they will always pull up an example about tulips or something else from the past that may or may not have a lot of relevance. I'm sure there are a lot of lessons to be learned from history, but cherry picking one example and saying, hey, the future is going to be like this because of this happened 300 years ago, is not always a perfect comparison. So I think the best attitudes have been that of openness, exploration. Future can be a bit of a wild and crazy place. Also, having some agency in this future we build as well. Sure, we're all just small pieces in a larger puzzle, but I think part of being an entrepreneur, part of being in startups is, you do believe you can make a small dent in the future by doing whatever you think is right.
I love that. So let's tuck and dive into that agency a little bit. So you said 7 years. 7 years ago, where was Ashatan? Where was Bitcoin? Where was CoinJar? What was going on here 7 years ago for you? And what was going on in the Bitcoin space? What was going on in the blockchain Bitcoin space? And what was going on in your life that kind of brought you to, give us an idea of where things were at 7 years ago?
Sure. So just as I was starting the company, I was working at my first full-time job, worked on Collins Street as an analyst. I quite enjoyed my job. It was, by some means, my first ideal dream job, being able to do writing, analysis at quite a high level at an early stage in my career. I got bored pretty quickly, wanted to make some changes to the company, try new things. And I guess I learned that in an organization where I was trying to do a certain task or deliver a certain set of results and trying too much out of my pay grade, as I was told, does have effects. And I guess I can sympathize with that more and more as an employer as well.
Organizations tend to have a lack of agility at times, yes.
Sure. So, I was reading the news one day, and I read about my co-founder Ryan, who at that time sold his first company at a young age. And with all things you read on the internet or listen on the podcast, you might need to verify all the facts yourself to make sure that it's not just someone's opinion or a puff media piece. So I went to seek out Ryan, who apparently sold his first company, and try to learn more about what happened through the process and how he got to that process. And that's how I met my first co-founder, Ryan. We became friends. I decided to enter a startup incubator with someone else. And in the end, we changed our idea to a Bitcoin one, and I got Ryan to join. So that was sort of the genesis. It was basically for, I guess, a new career pathway. I quite liked, I didn't know what a startup was, even though I was quite tech savvy. I didn't know there was a methodology to try and start a business. I thought, some people were just lucky at a young age to have the chance upon something that made money. or they were more talented than everyone else. I think I quickly found through both meeting my co-founder Ryan and going through this incubator program that there are actionable steps to take towards starting a business. There are some business frameworks to think about, and also considering the context of a technology company, there are ways to raise money and things like that. So that was born out of I guess frustration of my position, which probably many people find themselves in, but also taking small steps over probably the course of a year and a half to try and make a new pathway. And I guess once everything came together, it was quite easy to leave my job and say, hey, everyone, I'm going to try this wacky new thing where they give you some money and you build something and try and make more money out of it. Quite more commonly accepted right now, as there are more startup incubators and accelerators as well. But 7 years ago, it was even more niche than it is today.
So it sounds like you monkey roped from your existing career into CoinJar through VC and through the incubator. I've got some questions in terms of I can, and this is again talking to the soft side of things, but you've gone from, boredom in your job to, now you've gone to you've come up with an idea. It seems Bitcoin oriented. It seems really interesting. It's shiny, it's new. But then also you've got to figure out how to raise funds. You've got to figure out how to set up a business. You've also got to figure out what the hell is Bitcoin and how you can, add value in this space. So how does one go from being completely bored to then, surely when you're setting up a business, there's a bunch of overwhelm. How did you navigate all of that?
Yeah, it was absolutely overwhelming, especially in the early stages. I guess, throwing yourself in the deep end, not only starting a new company, but knowing that the success rate is very low, failure rate high. Are you going to be doing this in 3 months, 6 months? A sensible thing is always have a backup plan. What next? I guess I just threw myself into the deep end. And no one starts this position knowing how to manage a team, what the product is, or even what the product looks like, especially in emerging tech. Everyone in this industry is still figuring this out. And, lots of assumptions 7 years ago might not hold true today. And even right now, people question how much of the knowledge is true or just contextual for this point in time. So, my favorite quote that I like to say a lot is, be relentlessly resourceful, by Paul Graham of Y Combinator. And I guess that's just what we had to do, not just myself, but everyone in the team. At different stages, we all sort of learning together. And the only thing we can do about it is just try and be resourceful, find people who may have gone through similar experiences. Again, that's only it's helpful, but of limited help. At the end of the day, it's just yourself and your team and how you get through it together. So yeah, there's no right answer except the learning process.
I love that. Be relentlessly resourceful. If there's any takeaway, that's amazing. I love that. So we talk about success and failure. How did you also, just on the similar note, going in, were you aware that setting up, your company called CoinJar, it was hinged somewhat on the success of Bitcoin? Is that safe to say, or am I off on that?
Yeah, I would say our company is probably more fintech than crypto.
Sure.
In that we try and, like many financial technology companies, deliver benefits to users. Mm-hmm. So I'm not so concerned. I mean, I do believe that cryptocurrency is the best way to deliver benefits to our users. But I think, the company is predicated around making financial life better for people, as opposed to making this cryptocurrency thing work.
Brilliant. So tell us, how is CoinJar doing that? How is it making financial life better for all of us? What is CoinJar and how's it doing that for us?
Yeah, so I think the basics of financial betterness, it's quite clear because we can measure it. It's usually cheaper, better, more money, faster. And I think we can pretty much measure a lot of those
Quantify.
experiences,
Yeah.
quantify. I think that's quite different from some other industries which might sell you a consumer good or something which is really hard to pinpoint your
Oh,
experience.
I totally get it. I'm a life coach. Yeah.
So I think that's a tricky one, right?
Yeah.
You're measured by and I guess it's also the industry of where it wants to be and where it is now. We all imagine a financial future that's freer, where more people can have access to financial services. Being unbanked or underbanked is a thing of the past. I guess in Australia, we're really fortunate to have a developed financial system, a strong one at that. But I think the narrative has always been in the future, as this movement grows, there are a lot of people who don't have access to the correct financial services or the financial services they want, and cryptocurrency helps deliver those financial services to them potentially much better than any financial bank could do in the future. In the current day, CoinJar is a digital currency account. You can buy and sell major cryptocurrencies with it. We've got a debit card that allows you to spend it at Woolworths or any supermarket. And we are also having more features of how to use cryptocurrency. So we are looking into borrowing, lending, most things that a traditional financial institution would give you, but with a cryptocurrency skew on it. So I guess we believe by making these tools available, we make things more competitive. We reach a high level of service, and the company is a lot about objectively better experiences. So the experience is better, but somehow we can measurably show that this is going to be better than some of your existing financial tools.
Wow. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around the bit where you said exchanges in digital currencies. Yep, which I get, right? So it's like It could be Bitcoin, it could be perhaps Ethereum, or all these different currencies that exist out there. But then I can take my CoinJar debit card and pay for stuff at Coles or Woolworths.
Yeah. So we've had a debit card for about 5 years right now, and the question is, what is cryptocurrency if you can't use it? And so, that's the pain point we try to solve. We try to make it usable and easy. So sure, it's a lot of a chicken and egg problem. Many people don't have cryptocurrency. How do you get people to use something that they don't already have? So it's, making tools that make it usable and practical in real life. Let's just say you do a piece of work for someone halfway around the world. They pay you by Bitcoin. It comes to you in a matter of minutes. You can go down to a shop and spend it. So I think that's very much something that works today, and very much a future that we hope emerges.
So the bit that I'm struggling with is Woolworths accepting cryptocurrency, or is it exchanging it into the local currency for them to collect?
It exchanges on the fly to a regular debit card, which you can use. So they don't the shops don't accept cryptocurrency, but anywhere in Australia that accepts a debit card, you can use our CoinJar Swipe card anywhere in Australia. So just to make it practical. So again, it's more about providing practical benefits to users rather than having a cryptocurrency solution just for the sake of it.
Yeah. Which there are many different cryptocurrency wallets out there, but I think the usability is kind of what you're alluding to, is kind of your focus point.
Correct.
Yeah, amazing. And so in there, when we're talking about, all these different systems, like there are all these different cryptocurrencies out there. For someone like me that's never invested, still feels like it's somewhat speculative. Like, why would I put my money in there? Like, I don't really know, what I'm doing with it. There are different things. Like there is Bitcoin, which is just facilitating currency exchange, which CoinJar can help you do. Like you said, you've got an exchange, like you can have Bitcoin on your card. You can go and then at a market rate, you can buy local currency basically when you're buying bananas at Woolies, right? But then there's certain things like Ethereum, stuff like that. We're talking about stuff like the code actually contains, or your currency contains code. For a layperson like me, can you explain what's going on with that?
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin made strides in the idea of digital money, programmable money. And I think there are other teams who have tried to take this further to say how much can we program your money and how much instructions can we build into this monetary system.
And is that
projects
so
like,
when you exchange, it has a flow on effect, or it's like you exchange a piece of code and it behaves a certain way?
I guess all digital currency is based on code.
Yeah, of
So
course.
uh, the architecture is similar, I would say, or some of the ideas are similar, but yeah, all these new cryptocurrencies have their own little nuances, and they believe that it improves it measurably or that they could do more in the future with it. So in the case of Ethereum, which you were speaking about, the idea wasn't to build a Bitcoin replica per se, but a sort of a decentralized computer that can process not only monetary transactions, but software programs through their network. So before you had money that's not controlled by any one government, the Ethereum project looks at maybe taking a software program not run by any one person. So these are new ways of thinking about not only money value, but who owns it. At the end of the day, it's a new thought experiment which has been unleashed on the human race, and for some, we're all playing a part in it. And if you want to take part in this weird experiment, like you can always obtain cryptocurrency for a few dollars. You don't have to invest a lot. But I think that the more interesting thing, rather than thinking that your cryptocurrencies might go out or go up, is trying to figure out how it works and what have I actually got myself into.
Sounds a bit like Dorothy in the rabbit hole. So I want to tune in. So if I wanted to buy it, let's just say Amrit at the end of this episode is super keen to want to buy some Bitcoin. Can I just sign up with CoinJar and find my way to some Bitcoin? Is it as easy as that to a degree?
Yeah, I think there are different levels of difficulty of using Bitcoin. You can go to the expert way, and the expert way you wouldn't need a middleman like CoinJar to help you hold the cryptocurrency, exchange the cryptocurrency, the whole idea of the movement as well. You could do it all yourself. But in practicality, not everyone has the time, investment, or the headspace to take expert level steps to becoming their own bank. There are a lot of easier ways to get into it, and CoinJar is definitely one of the easiest ways to get started. It's basically like an email account. You can just go up, sign up online, and get started.
So questions I have then is I've heard of these horror stories where people signed up for Bitcoin when it first came out. They had a password to their cryptocurrency. Since then, cryptocurrency took off, Bitcoin went up, and they've got like now $1 million worth of assets, but they forgot their password, or they don't remember where they put their cryptocurrency on their digital device. What is going on there? How is it locked in such a way? Is it the password that you're meant to remember?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to use an analogy, it's sort of like cash. If you lose the cash, then it's gone. So I guess those people have taken the expert pathway to cryptocurrency, trying to manage a lot of their own private keys, trying to manage a lot of these things themselves when they're probably not well primed or educated on how to take best steps not to lose your money. So it's not, you've probably read it in the newspaper, in the media. It makes it for a great media article, and it does happen from time to time to people who don't secure it in the proper ways. So again, I would suggest starting on the easiest mode. Use a service like CoinJar or any one of the reputable services online. If you're ready to step it up and take charge of your own money to a higher degree, that's always available for you. And I guess that's again part of the ethos of the industry. It's a matter of choice. It's an alternative. Do your own research, and you can take agency over your own money in a way that wasn't previously possible.
I love that. So one of the things that's really poignant for me in this present moment is just, we've got two young men here talking about finance, which, when I think about finance, I kind of think of button-down suit, collared tie, kind of gray hair. Well, I have balded, but, generally bald hair. And it's like, yeah, there's this whole, thing that, currency, wealth structures and all that sort of stuff are like institutionalized, and they belong to, like these institutions which are run by, I don't want to, sound biased, but, people that are mature, but here we are, younger people are getting interested in financial technologies. Like 7 years ago was like you said, was fintech even this bigger thing? Like now people are talking about, financial technologies, and they're excited by this sort of stuff. Like what is going on in the space? Like, what do you kind of see the future? And I know this is massive speculation on top of speculation, so obviously there's that, grain of salt that I've got to take with this. But what do you see as being the future? Just like, let's say, CoinJar does its thing, and it's thriving. What is it thriving on the back of? Like, what's it helping facilitate? Is it just like an everyday banking system that is decentralized and facilitating the exchange of all these? Anyway, I'm projecting things into your space. What do you see the future as being?
Yeah, I think in many industries with the advent of technology, we've seen huge structural change, be it publishing, shopping, retail shopping now, and, telecommunications. And a lot of people have been waiting for these changes to come to the financial aspects of the financial industry. And I think that's sort of playing out already. You see a lot of new banks without branches, digital-only banks, new banks in Australia that are not the big four. So new brands and more competition, hopefully giving better service and experiences to users. And again, if you just talk about the benefits to users, I think you can already imagine a more competitive playing field in Australia has some benefits. But taking that further, how about if it's a more competitive financial industry altogether? How about if new players, young people like myself, can start a company, can start a brand around a financial product that quickly gains popularity and trust in a short amount of time. I think it's a better future for everyone if we can have a more competitive industry, more smart ideas from all around the world, and I guess fewer traditional red tape probably compared to finance. The finance industry has always been a bit harder to crack. I guess for good reason. There's a lot of issues of safety around money, investment, making sure to protect people from, I guess, shysters. And this has been going on for thousands of years. So how do we best protect people, but at the same time, how do we have a permissive environment for new technology, for new ideas to, I guess, improve the industry?
It's an interesting balance there, isn't it? Because I've read somewhere that you also can't bank with some of the banks here in Australia just because of how innovative, or just, the risk involved with what they perceive as being the stuff that you're up to, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's improved a lot over the last 7 years, but especially when we first started, there was, a lot of difficulty around payments and banking, and it's a risk management game. It's an unenviable position for the banks as well. I mean, the banks have had a lot of strife in the last 12, 18 months in Australia around some of these same things that they were trying to avoid, like reporting and AML, which means how do they ID the customer, where do they know where the payments are going. So I think those are increasingly big problems as well. Technology seeks to solve some of these things, but I think technology sometimes also has unintended consequences. And with increased reporting of banking and things like that, I think everyone is asking, at what point do I have, again, maybe self-sovereignty over my own money? Is everything going to be digital one day? And what happens if I do lose access to my bank account? Does that mean I lose access to all a lifetime's worth of money and wealth, which I've built for myself as well. So I think these are some interesting uh, issues in today's world. Not to say that Bitcoin, crypto, or CoinJar is the solution for all of them, but it's definitely something to be aware of, and I guess knowing our part to play, both as I guess an end user of this financial system, and I guess just a bit maybe making it better as well.
And at the very least, it's indicating that there is innovation in this space, even if it isn't the end result. A path has begun to move in a new direction. And wherever that takes us, people are exploring it. So I'd love to sort of tune in and bring it a little bit back to you. What do you think it was about yourself that, obviously you were bored at a certain point, as an analyst, and then you kind of bridged over to all the overwhelm, let's just call it the overwhelm. So you bridged yourself over to that world. Was there certain things about your temperament? Obviously we've talked about resilience, but was there certain things about you that were better suited to being an entrepreneur from the outset, or is it something you groomed yourself into becoming? Living life, now I'm speaking to you and you're in London, you set up offices there as well. CoinJar is doing its thing around the world. What was it like? Is there something particularly unique about you that kind of got you there, or was there some skill sets that you evolved along the way that you pay particular homage to?
I think I've met quite a few successful entrepreneurs, and I guess everyone's different. Everyone has their own style. I'm sure there is a risk profile to most entrepreneurs who probably are willing to take slightly more risks than maybe most people, and that might be career risk. There are people who have families who also take risks as entrepreneurs, so it's not like they also have a different risk profile, but they still choose to go forward. So I do think that there is some element of risk taking as an entrepreneur, but overall, a lot of successful entrepreneurs I've met all sort of different and unique in their own way. I think my journey probably the most has been predicated upon, I guess, my friendship with my co-founder. You'll see in technology many times they've got a founding team of maybe 2 people. 3 is a bit of a tight switch, but I think 2, 3 is a good number of having complementary skills, both technical and soft skills, who can work on projects together. Being an entrepreneur by yourself is an incredibly lonely process. It's very tough. Some people can make by to have their partner, their husband, their wife, their girlfriend to work with them, and I tip my hat to that. At least you have someone in your journey with. But I think it's some say that a business co-founding relationship is even it's more than a marriage. Equity is forever, right? You can't really change those things, even by going to court or whatever. So I do think at least my personal experience has been a lot about my relationship with my co-founder. We're very different people. I guess socially we wouldn't hang out together at the same places or do the same things, but as a working relationship, it's been 7 years, and that has, I guess, been the key defining aspect of what the company is built on, and I guess how we treat people as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I've heard you say when you first met him, you thought he was the next Mark Zuckerberg in a way.
Yeah, he definitely has all the requisite skills to be.
Incredible. And there's been challenges on your journey as well. Like I remember reading up on a certain part of your journey where you ended up having to let go of some people, and that was like exceptionally hard for you to sort of digest at the time.
Yeah, I guess for a young company leader, how fast do you want to grow the company? Especially in this world of venture capital backed startups, very competitive space. You're always growing. The industry is volatile. Sometimes you grow, sometimes you shrink. And it's easy when you read about it in the paper, or layoffs happen, or this company shrank. They probably grew too fast, or whatever the case, right? It's never a pleasant experience on either side of the table. I guess in our case, particularly because small company, have a mission together, all share something more than, hey, this is just a job which I show up to 9 to 5.
Mm.
Yeah, and I guess that's just something you have to deal with. You have to just be honest. I still speak to many of these people. We had someone come by the office recently, and it was good to hear his take, maybe quite a few years later, on how that experience went down to him and how it affected him personally. But yeah, I guess that's all part and parcel of growing a company.
And so if you, like, obviously you've grown a lot as you've grown your company. Looking back, would you change anything in particular, or has it all just been lessons well learned, lessons bought and paid for sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything I would change. I'm just grateful more than anything. Everyone who's helped on the pathway. Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I always say it's more a people thing than myself thing. I'm just happy with all those interactions that have got me to this point, and hopefully my interactions have impacted people as well.
I hope they continue to impact people that are tuning in now as well. So for those that are tuning in, that kind of have the ambition to not necessarily leave their job, but are inspired to do something different with their life, and perhaps monkey rope into they've got some burning ideas, or they've got some passions or some interest in some other things. Is there any advice you've got for those?
Yeah, I mean, just start. Take small steps to your goal. I mean, I went into the deep end, and that helped me immensely to focus on one thing. Everyone's path is different. All you have to do is make sure you take some measurable steps to whatever that goal is.
Asher, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time and the energy to be here today to explain to us what CoinJar was about, to basically distill, what was going on in the Bitcoin space. I know that after listening to you, it makes it a lot easier for me to just go, okay, I can jump online and just literally, find CoinJar, buy some Bitcoin, at least dip my toe and try and understand what's going on in this whole space of cryptocurrency. It does make it a lot easier for me. So I think your mission of trying to make, it easier to transact with digital currency, well, it's worked at least for one person, which might just be me. But I know you've got 400,000 users, so it's not just me. But yeah, I really want to just take a moment to thank you for your time and energy and sharing yourself with us here today. But also, this the wisdom, the commitment, the resilience that you referred to that it takes to kind of walk onto the path of becoming the individual that you have, and taking just all those steps along the way for us to have such an informed conversation here today. And so I just want to thank you for that, and also just wishing you all the best for the future as well.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. And for those that want to tune in, the easiest way to get in touch is to check out CoinJar online.
Yeah, App Store, CoinJar.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Cheers, thanks.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Love of the Inspired Evolution and sharing the Love of the Inspired Evolution. If you feel like this content has supported you, or may support anyone else that may resonate with the content of it, please share away and share the love around. Thank you guys so much. And to stay up to date on whatever's coming out with the Inspired Evolution, please subscribe. There's all these links in the bio for you to tune into the episodes and all these different platforms, just so that message can get to you and your loved ones. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Stay inspired to evolve.